I'm going to make a book recommendation today, and that book recommendation is Measure What Matters by John Doerr. Now, who's this book for? This book is for people who are interested in business, people who are interested in management, people who are starting their own business, which is like startups, or even people who are starting their own NPOs, NGOs, coaches, those kind of people. If you are in any of those categories, then this book is for you. It describes a goal setting system and a goal evaluation system that John Doerr refers to as the OKR. And what is OKR? It's your objective and your key results. So when he speaks about objectives, he speaks about your objectives being triple B, big but believable. And when he speaks about your key results, he speaks about the Q and Q, which is the quantity and the quality. And he goes into a variety of case studies, giving analysis about this OKR system, as well as argumentation for why this particular system is effective. I'm gonna not spoil it entirely, but I'm gonna make sure that you take time to read it. So I'm not gonna go into too much more detail. But what I'm gonna say is that, in terms of where does this book fall in terms of beginner, intermediate, advanced, if you are a business student or a management student, this is really beginner, maybe even intermediate, if you haven't, looked into this particular set of ideas. But if you are like a postgraduate diploma in management student or an MBA student, you probably have bumped into this at some level. But if you're definitely on the beginner to intermediate level and you haven't looked into this, and sometimes that applies to doctors and lawyers who haven't looked at particular content, I think this book is for you. One of the criticisms of the book that I want to point out to you from the jump is that sometimes the book does mix up outcomes and outputs. Outputs are just activities that you can put on a scoreboard, whereas outcomes are relevant business metrics that you really care about. So the difference would be sales calls and sales themselves. You can make 100 calls, but that doesn't necessarily mean you made 100 sales. And sometimes the book does conflate the outcomes and the outputs, and you want to be careful about that. But overall, I think that this is an essential book to read if you haven't looked at this particular matter. If you are coming from professions such as science, law, medicine, where you don't necessarily spend a lot of time looking at this is one of the books that you want to put on your shelf as a 101 type of book, but still quality read. So if you haven't read it, let me know if you get it and we can have a discussion about it. Otherwise, we need to be talking more about management in general. One of the things that we really struggle with in the African or Black community is the management of businesses. It's not as if other countries or other people are better than us, but sometimes they have institutional knowledge of this kind of thing that they got over generations simply because their families were running businesses, their parents were in corporate for a longer period of time. So we have to take time to build our management muscles and our management literacy. And this book is one of the books that does that. And you know what they say, if you know better, you do better. But to conclude, one of the most quoted business sayings is, you get what you measure. You get what you measure. So you better become an expert at measuring the right things. Peace.